Hi everybody, it's Murray here. So last week we painted this gorgeous sparkle painting and we're going to paint this more detailed one during the week, which I'm going to teach you. But today we're going to paint this gorgeous sunset version. So we're going to paint sunset colours on how to paint water in acrylics but with lovely golden sparkles. So let's get into it. So because it's a beginner's tutorial, we're only going to use a few colours. It's nice and easy. We're going to use titanium white, cad yellow, cad red, ultramarine blue and dioxazine purple. And I've got a nice 10 by 12 inch canvas here. I've just prepped it. It's already been gessoed. And what we're going to do, we're going to paint our waves on first and then we're going to colour them over the top. So what I'm going to do is mix some purple, some ultramarine blue and some red to kind of make a really dark sort of burgundy colour. I'm going to add a bit of yellow to turn it more brown. So we're going to make a really dark purpley red basically. And the reason we're going to do this, we're going to paint an outline of our waves. I'm using a flat-headed brush. Now a flat-headed brush is like the flathead of a screwdriver. And all I want to do is create a big chunky outline so I can basically trace over the top. So what I try to do is I do big chunky waves at the bottom and I use this sharp edge of the brush to create sort of scoop shapes. And then as I move up into the painting, I make these scoops a little bit flatter, if that kind of makes sense. So look, I'm getting flatter and these scoops are getting closer together. So the ones at the bottom are going to be big waves like that. And as we go up, the great thing about having a flat brush is I can kind of do these pretty straight lines. I'm deliberately making them sort of curved so they look like caps of waves. But look, it's easy to do sort of straightish lines. And all I'm doing as I go up into the painting is making those lines closer together and flatter so they look like waves that are going off into the distance. And it creates the illusion of distance. Now what you can do, if you want to, you can add a little bit of water to your brush and then you can just kind of fill in sort of where you want the shadows to be. Now you've kind of got your shapes for your waves. What I like to do is just go round the outline with some water and a bit of the paint, the same colour on my brush, and just kind of shade it. The other thing I like to do is at the bottom of my painting, I like to just colour in the border of the canvas. So the very bottom sort of outer border, I just like to colour in. Because we want to make our edges nice and dark at the bottom, because we're going to sign it down the bottom. But also if we're going to have the sunlight coming from the top, the bottom of the painting is going to be a bit more in the dark. So look, all I'm doing, I've got a little bit of water on my brush, and I'm just going around the outline. And I'm just kind of colouring it in, look. And I'm just trying to create that shade around it. So just take your time, there's no rush. The great thing about YouTube is it has a little speed setting at the bottom. You can always change it. So if you find the video is too fast, you can slow it down. If you find it's too slow, you can fast forward it. So help yourself. Play about at your own speed. But look, all I'm doing, I'm just gradually shading areas. Because when we paint all the bright colours over the top, this outline will shine through and it will make our life so much easier. So look, all I'm doing, I'm adding more dioxazine purple, more ultramarine blue, a little bit red to turn it more burgundy, and a little bit of yellow to turn it more brownish. And all I'm doing is the areas that I want super dark, I'm just going over my highlight, my outline. Because with acrylics, sometimes, unlike oil paint, when you put the first layer down, they can dry just a bit flat. And to make areas, if you want darker, you can just go over them. If you want to make areas brighter, so say later on in the video, we're doing things like the bright white sparkles, you can make them more brighter by just giving them a second coat of paint. So look, all I've done, I've added more dark purple and more ultramarine blue to the mix. So at the bottom of the painting, it's nice and dark. Now, I'm happy with this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to dry my work with a hairdryer. because we're going to paint over the top. So please dry your work. Well done for doing that, everyone. Well done for doing your outline. It looks a bit scruffy, but please dry your work, because now we're going to put these bright colours over the top. And if your work is not dry, it's going to all mix with this beautiful, nice pastel yellow. So all we're doing, look, we're mixing white, yellow, and a little bit of red. So white, yellow, and a little bit of red. And you should get the colour Cad Yellow Deep Hue, which is basically a golden yellow. All it is yellow, a little bit of red, and lots of white. And look, now, because our outline is dry, I can use a nice soft big brush and I can just paint over the top the illusion of sunlight in sunset colours glistening down on my water. So this could be the sea, or this could be the pond, or wherever it is. And I'm creating the illusion of this nice heated, warm sunset colours. So we're using yellow. And the great thing is, look, my outline is still there. Yay! So I'm just speeding it up because it's nothing technical. It's just really easy. All I want you to do is just paint over the top of your outline. And you should still see your outline. But as I say, you have to dry your painting, because if not, you're going to get a murky blob. So look, all we're going to do now, we're going to add more red to the mix. Now red makes orange, which is kind of overpowering, so you don't need too much. If you find it leans too orangey, you can add a little bit more yellow like I'm doing. So all we're doing, look, we're adding yellow and orange to our mix, a little bit less white. And we're creating this sort of hot orange, sort of like a fiery colour. And all we're doing, while the two colours are wet, we're just gently pushing them into each other, which is called blending. Look, and all I'm doing, look, I'm just going back and forth, and I'm just gently tapping the painting, and I'm just blending the two colours. Now don't worry if your blending's a bit scruffy, we're going to neaten it all up later. I'll teach you how to do that later. We just kind of want a rough area blended. So all I'm going to do, I'm going to leave a little bit of yellow in the middle to create this sort of shimmer effect, and I'm just going to go around it in this nice hot orange. But it's really, really easy, so just take your time. Obviously I'm going a little bit faster for the edit on the video. Look, you can do this trick, you can wipe it on your scruffy painting clothes. If you're like me, I just wear scruffy cheapy t-shirts and I just wipe it on some of my clothes. But if you don't want to do that and you are very nice and you dress nice, you can always just use some kitchen roll or a crappy cloth and just wipe your brush against that. Take most of the paint off your brush, look, and then you've just got hardly any paint, and it's so much easier just to blend because there's not much paint on your brush. So look, as we go out, we are getting darker. So to do that, we're just adding more red to our mix. We've still got a bit of yellow to keep it nice and warm. So we're just adding more red to the mix, but now we're going to add a cooler colour, which is dioxazine purple. God, that is a mouthful, what a name. Why can't it just be purple? So we're adding that colour, and it's going to turn it more burgundy. So it's going to turn it a bit more darker, as you can see. And we're just going to gently blend that in. So if you just try think of a good rule of thumb is the light is going to be in the middle. So we are still using warm colours, as in oranges and reds and yellows. But we're just getting darker in value and in colour as we go away from the middle. So it looks more red either side, look, it looks more orangey red, and we're still just trying to roughly blend it. But as I say, don't worry if your work is scruffy, we can neaten it all up afterwards. It's a tutorial for beginners, I don't want to make this too hard, so don't beat yourself up, go at your own pace. So add the yellow and red combination, but just less yellow and a bit more purple. So it's the same colour combination, it's just in a different order and just different amounts. So we should get a nice burgundy colour, sort of a maroon. So look at that, that's lovely. And then by having a dark colour, what it's doing is it's framing your painting to get you to look towards the middle. So by having dark colours, you can do this on any painting. By having your darkest colours on the edges, it's a bit like framing a photograph. And look, as I say, I always frame the bottom of my painting because the bottom bit is going to be a bit darker. And then I'm just gently blending it. And what it should do, it looks very scruffy, but that's okay. But what it should do is gradually get you to look towards the yellow spot in the middle. And don't worry, look, if you get brush marks or scratches in the canvas, I'm going to show you how to fix that. That is very common with acrylics because you're using water on a rough, spiky canvas. So don't worry about that. That's very normal. So look, this is my one. This is dry. Look, it's got loads of scuff marks, loads of bits that I've missed. That is normal. That is totally normal. What you can do is just dry your work with a hairdryer and give it 5 minutes and then go over the top. Look, just go over the top with the same colours and just take out any scruffy marks. Just try to see where you've missed any bit of the white canvases, and before you continue, just neaten it all up. That's what I always do. So I'm going to show you just how to make your blended areas a little bit less scruffy. So if you mix the similar colours, so I've got some of that orange, yellow and white to do the orange section. My brush is a bit dirty, but I kind of don't care. It kind of looks nice. I think it had a bit of grey in it from a previous painting, but hey ho. And all I'm doing, look, by giving it a second coat of paint and then just using my finger, that professional tool of a finger, you can literally just smudge areas. Now, a good rule of thumb to try to make your painting look more realistic is to try to follow the contours of the waves. Look, so this wave kind of goes round like that. I can kind of use this colour to sort of make it look more realistic. And all I'm doing, look, I've got very little paint on my brush and I'm just sort of smudging it with my finger. And any bits of that scruffy canvas that I've noticed that I've missed, I'm just going over. So I'm just taking an extra 5 minutes before I move to the next colour, and when I'm happy with it, I just move to the next colour. So I'm just mixing some of that yellow and white. I'm just going to add a tiny bit of red. Be careful with the reds because orange is really overpowering, so you don't need much to turn it orange. So I'm going to make some of that golden sort of yellow, and then look, I'm just going to do the same in the middle. And I'm just coming out from the middle. And I'm trying to create these sort of little lines, look, either side of the middle. And these are just the illusion of the shimmering water. So think of like a glisten, like sparkles. Water's always moving, but it's still very feminine. It's very curvy and rounded. There's all nice curvy shapes. So look, this is what I mean about try to follow the waves. Look, so when you've painted that outline, just try to follow the shapes of it. Really easy. So the great thing is once you know this trick, so we're going to do a much more detailed water ripple one. I've designed a nice painting tutorial later in the week, so be sure to like and subscribe because you can watch that one later on next week. So I want to do a whole series on water, and then what we're going to do is we're going to combine all these paintings that I'm teaching you into much bigger professional works. But you kind of need to know these steps on how to do them. So it's very valuable to watch these sort of like techniques and these little videos. So then when we do the bigger ones, look, I've got hardly any paint. Look, if I push down, I get loads of paint. But look, if I just do it really gently, it's almost like a little smudge. Look, little like bit of chalk where the paint just barely comes off. And I can just rub it. Yeah, so if we do all these little tutorials, what it does is it gears you up for all the more harder ones we're going to do later on. And don't worry, if you're an absolute beginner, I've created playlists. So we've got lots of things for you to learn. So don't worry, I've got loads of sections on how to paint water, how to paint sunsets, how to paint mountains. Whatever you want to learn, just go to the playlist now. Now we've got tons of videos you can go and learn at. Now I want to paint the waves. So what I did was I added some yellow, red and white to create sort of this sort of nice sort of reddy sort of pastel peach colour, but I think I made it too light. So I made this sort of colour here. It's kind of like a peach colour, and the idea was to paint the waves in the middle. So I want to leave this in the video because I like to leave, even me teaching these videos, sometimes things go wrong. It's kind of work, it's very, very subtle. But all I'm doing, look, I'm painting over my waves, the outline, because the waves in the middle were going to be really bleached with the sun, but I think it's too light. So let's just add a little bit more red to it. So basically, if you think of this, the waves right in the middle, they're getting all the sunlight. So we don't want to make too bright a colour, but we still want to add yellow and red to it to make it sort of look fiery. And if you think the heat from that glistening sun is going to be incredibly bright. So in the middle, I've kind of done it a pastel colour. Look, there's lots of white in it. But as I come away from the middle, if this makes sense, I'm just adding a little bit more heat. And as I come down, and I'm just adding a little bit more yellow and red to create a bright orangey colour. So if you think that pastel colour, we didn't really use it. Look, I'm kind of going over it. But really what it is in real life, the sun, or any light, if you think of it, if you try to look at the sun, it hurts your eyes. But also it bleaches colours because it's intensely bright. So look, now I've got that sort of hot colour. I'm just painting over the outline of my waves in the middle. These are waves that are getting bleached by the sun. And the great thing is because I already spent 10 minutes doing my outline, it's so easy to just colour in. So these tutorials, as I say, the way I kind of design them, I'm trying to make everything super easy for you all. So I'm just going to add more purple to the mix. So orange, yellow and purple to create more of a maroon colour that's kind of the mid-tones. And I'm just doing the same. So hopefully, as I say, just little tricks like painting your outlines first in all these tutorials and then just colouring them in is making your life so much easier. I'm going to do a lot more little tips and tricks on videos on how to create photos and how to take reference photos. And then even if you struggle drawing, how you can turn those photos into stencils and how you can trace them and things like that, so you can get all your paintings and everything in proportion. Because I know a lot of people find drawing and planning of a painting quite difficult, so I'm going to teach you loads of tricks on how to do all that. So as I say, we're going to get much more advanced, much more technical in all these tutorials. If you are keen to learn, I'm keen to teach, so it's really, really good. So there we go, look, we're just going over these areas. And don't forget, if anyone wants to learn anything, obviously I want to do water for a little while, but if anyone wants to learn anything, please put ideas in the comments below. So we're going to use now ultramarine blue, so we're saving our darkest darks to the bottom of the painting, which are going to be more in the shade. So we're going to add purple, ultramarine blue, which is a very dark blue, and red. I'm running out of red, I need a bit more red, but we're going to put some red into it and we should get this very dark purpley colour. We're going to put a little bit of cad yellow to make it more brown, turn it back. Adding yellows and reds brings it more warmer, adding purples and blues turns the colour more cooler. So because we've used ultramarine blue, we wanted to use reds and yellows to bring it back. Now what I'm going to do here, look, I'm going to do my darkest dark. So I've got this very dark reddy purple. Look, it's really harsh, isn't it? And what I want to do is, look, I want to create shapes of ripples, but I want to leave the hum of the underpainting, like the nice reddy colour that we've got underneath. So look, I'm going to create a shape, but I'm going to leave a little bit of a gap, because I really like the colour underneath, that sort of like browny red that we've created underneath. And what it does is it makes your water look softer, more feminine and more real. So all that time doing the outline, it wasn't wasted. We're not just painting over it, we're keeping it, we're using it. And what it should do, it's starting, if you look up towards the middle of the painting, can you see it's starting to trick your eyes? And the bottom bit looks a bit weird because it's such a jump, but when we link the two areas together, it will look really real. So all I'm doing, I'm just shading in the bottom of my painting because, as I say, I want there's going to be less sun, and I want to frame my painting. I want to get you to look towards the middle. So by having the bottom of the painting nice and dark, I can get you to do that. And also in the bottom left hand corner, I want to sign it. So I always need to have a dark area, because I want to get my credit and I want to put my signature in the bottom left. So look, all I'm doing, look, I'm going around the shapes of these waves that we've traced. I'm just kind of creating curves and sort of little shapes to insinuate sort of waves and water. So look, and I'm leaving that hum around it. I don't want any sharp angles. I just want to make everything really smooth, curvy. So as I say, take your time. I know in today's age everything is instantaneous, but you will never get good at anything if you rush through everything. And also, painting is meant to be relaxing. One of the things that again I want to do in the channel is do more things about mental health and why painting is so important for grounding you and relaxation. So if you're always like, go, 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 I've got to be quick, and in an urgency, it's really bad for things like your nervous system. It's really bad for your stress. So just chill out, listen to some music, enjoy yourself, and also do something that makes yourself feel proud. You get a sense of achievement from it. It will do wonders for your confidence. Like, I love painting. It's the best. I love the flow state where you just lose yourself for hours. You forget the world and you just get lost in your own creation. It's the best. So I love doing it. So I'm just chilling. This painting, I was actually painting the one before it that I'm going to teach you later in the week. And the light was going. Funny enough, it was a sunset outside, but it was in London, so it didn't look like this. It didn't look like a beautiful ocean scene. It really didn't. But the light kept changing, so it was quite hard. I had to go really, even though it looks like I'm going slow, I was going quick and trying to paint and also trying to think of what I was teaching you really, really quickly. So as I say, if you go too quick, sometimes it ruins your work. So just take your time. So what I'm doing, look, I've got very little of that colour on my brush and I'm just linking areas, but I'm not going too far up the painting because the nearer to the light, the warmer the colours are going to be. And I want to leave those nice red waves. So all I'm doing, look, I've barely got any paint. I'm just shading some of the waves. Just look, I'm just giving them a hint, a little kiss with the brush. And I'm just trying to make the transitions from the really darks to the lights just sort of gently blend in with one another. I'm just trying to smooth everything. So that's pretty cool. So look, we've got all our ripples in. We are good. We are good for ripples. So what we're going to do now, we're going to do all the sparkles and all the sort of reflection in the water. So we're going to mix yellow and white, and we're going to use a really thin elongated brush. And we're going to do these sort of spindly little sort of lightning bolt shapes coming from the middle. Now, who remembers the sort of plastic, there were like plastic stretchy things that you used to get around cans of beer or cola. And they sort of used to hold something like a 6-pack or something, this is showing my age, together. And they got banned because they were actually bad for the water. I don't know if people remember them. There were sort of like these plastic things. Well, they kind of had these like circular sort of loops that it was kind of like a net that you would hold like drinks within. And they were really bad for wildlife, so they got rid of them. But if you think of a net fence, like a chain fence or something, we want to create sort of like wonky circles, if that kind of makes sense. So what I'm trying to do is just create the illusion of these sort of like circles that are kind of squashed. My explanations are probably terrible. You're probably thinking I'm smoking crack or something. Like, what is he talking about? But as I come down, I want to make them a bit wider. So I want it to make it look like kind of like wire. Is that kind of what make what I'm trying to say make sense? It's so hard to teach and explain what I'm trying to say. But we're trying to create these like sort of like diagonal sort of diamond sort of shapes, these loops. but we're trying to make them slightly wonky so they look like they're in the water. So they're going up and down. So by using one of these really thin brushes, we use a lot of these brushes for painting things like fur or hair or tree branches that are really thin. So, and then as we come away from the middle, we're going to turn that yellow darker, so you can just add red to your mix and you'll get a golden colour, which is called Cad Yellow Deep Hue, which all it is, you don't need to buy it, is yellow, red and white, but just more yellow than anything, and you should get a golden colour. And as we go down into the painting, and as we go to the left and the right, we're just doing the same trick, but this really helps because look, the brush is so thin, it makes my life so much easier investing in one of these brushes. They literally cost £1 or $1. So don't skimp, buy a brush, because it'll make this so much easier than try to do it with a big chunky brush. And all I'm doing, look, is carrying on to the edges. As we go up into the painting, I'm going to kind of let them fade out because I want it to look like that area is far away. So I don't want it too much in focus. If it's too in focus, you can always smudge it with your finger to make it look a bit blurry. But this should look like the light refracting. God, it's a pronunciation class today. It's hard to say these things. Refracting onto the water's surface. So we're creating these sort of squishy loops. And it's all coming together. We've got our ripples underneath. And now we've got this really easy technique over the top. And again, it's all in the brush. That brush takes all the credit and the glory. So please invest in one of these brushes. You can get one off Amazon or an art shop if you want to support someone local. So that is looking really, really cool. And it literally took 2 minutes. All our ripples are looking really, really cool. So we're going to put the finishing touches, which is our beautiful sparkles. So please again dry your painting. And all I want you to do is mix some of this colour up, which is the Cad Yellow Deep Hue, which again you can buy it, but all you have to do is mix yellow, a little bit of red and white, but predominantly yellow, and you should get this lovely golden colour. And then all I want you to do is to create splodges where you think you want your sparkles to be. So all I do is I follow the waves at the top in the middle. So I've created kind of like little sort of lines in the middle. And as I come down, I just create big splodges of this lovely golden colour. And these are going to be where I'm going to have my sparkles. So first I use this orangey goldy colour. And I put down my lovely golden colour. And then now I just get pure Cad yellow. So first you lay the golden colour. Then I get Cad yellow. And I just put in shapes within my blobs. And what it should do is the golden colour should create a glow. And then the yellow in the middle should create sort of a nice glow effect. And then when we use white over the top, it will look like the areas are glowing. So all I'm doing now, look, I'm just using bright white paint straight out the tube with a clean brush. And in the middle of that yellow and in the middle of that gold, I'm creating blobs. Some of the blobs I've got pushed all together, and some of the blobs I've got separate. And it should, because you've got the yellow around the white, and then you've got the gold around the yellow, you should create a glow. And already it's starting to look hyper realistic. And look, you can have little clumps if you want areas to really sparkle. Now, what I would say to you, is I was going incredibly quick because the light was going, and it doesn't look like it, but it was dark outside by the time I finished this painting. And I was trying to film it for you as much as I can. I didn't want to start all again, so I was trying to get it before the sun went down. So I'm going really quick. So excuse me for jumping from white and yellow, but look, this is a trick. Go back to your really thin brush and create the shape of a cross on some of your sparkles, and they'll look like they're sparkling. And the other trick is to go over your white once or twice, so your white will absorb the yellow as it dries. Go over it again a second time, and it will make your white look much more vibrant, and you will get that lovely sparkle effect. People won't tell you that on the tutorials because a lot of time they're rushing, but acrylics dry very flat, so if you want it to look more professional and more expensive, just give it a second coat of white. I promise it will look really good. So this was the next morning. So I've stuck her on a lovely easel in my art studio. So look, we've got this beautiful glow. We painted the ripples as our outline. We've got our darkened corners to get you to look towards the middle. We've got these beautiful ripples. We've got the light refraction that you learned how to do with a really thin brush to create this sort of illusion of the waves. And then you've got the golden hum of the sparkles, and then you've got the white and some of those sparkles with the cross shapes. So a really easy tutorial. The one to the right is a bit more advanced and a bit more realistic. We're going to teach you next week. If you want to learn the previous one, that is available on the channel. And happy painting. So take care everyone, and I hope you've really enjoyed the channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you soon guys. Happy painting. Take care. Bye.